we're spending all this money. In fact, Tony Blinken, our champion Secretary of State, who just can't spend enough. Gosh, I mean, what are the latest numbers? 125 billion. Actually, total U.S. support commitment of 135 billion by the end of the year. That would mean that we've actually spent more in Ukraine, or will have spent more by the end of the year than we will have spent in Afghanistan in 20 years. Just to keep the numbers in perspective, right? I mean, I know inflation's bad and everything, but come on, guys. Anyway, here he is, and he's pledging even more money, and how he's so committed to actually the whole green energy thing in Ukraine. Listen, and I know he's boring, so we're going to keep it short, but listen to a little bit of what he says.
Conference held in London a few months ago, I pledged that the United States would invest more than $520 million in making Ukraine's energy infrastructure, more than half of which has been destroyed by Russia, cleaner, more resilient, and more integrated with Europe. We're making new investments to enhance the transparency of Ukraine's institutions and to bolster the rule of law so that Ukraine's democracy is even more responsive to the needs of its people and can attract the private capital needed to rebuild.
Come on!
We're engaged in assisting
Come on! You expect us to believe that? I mean, Joe Biden is the one that went over there and was like, okay, I'm doing this big speech on like, let's stop all corruption. Well, in the background, he's like, hey, gimme, allegedly, gimme. I mean, he's like, gimme, yeah, and I'll get rid of Shokin for you. Admitted it in a big speech there on stage with Richard Haas from the CFR, Council on Foreign Relations. I mean, and now Blinken's up there saying, okay, we're going to give another, $1 billion. He just pledged a 500 and something at this London conference. Again, total number, $135 billion by the end of the year. And they're going to put it into now green energy. I wonder who's going to get those contracts. And then they're going to stamp out corruption, because I guess the only people that are going to get those contracts are the ones that are greasing the bureaucrats. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on there, for goodness sakes. I mean, just look at how many people they've been through there in the defense ministry in Ukraine. They keep firing their head of defense and deputies because of graft. This is how it works. And apparently that's how it works here too. It works that way here too. And, you know, they're talking about, well, we're going to need all this reinvestment. They're going to need reinvestment because the country is being destroyed because of war. They're going to need investment in green projects because, for God's sakes, I'm sorry, they've now got depleted uranium weapons that they're sending to Ukraine. I mean, you want to talk about toxic stuff for people and the environment, for goodness sakes.
It's that for the first time will include depleted uranium munitions. This is a military aid package going to Ukraine. It will include depleted uranium munitions. That is according to a UN official. With me now is Deputy Pentagon Press Secretary Sabrina Singh. Sabrina, great to see you.
It's all fine, according to
and look,
Sabrina.
These depleted uranium rounds, they can pierce armored plates like those found on tanks because they're made of a highly dense metal, but they are mildly radioactive. So what do you say to those who suggest, A, this is an escalation in the type of weaponry being sent to Ukraine, and B, what about the environmental concerns?
Well, thanks, John, for having me. It's great to be with you. Again, I'm not going to get ahead of any announcements that the Pentagon hasn't made yet today. But what I will say is these rounds are standard use in the tanks that not only the U.S. uses, but that we will be providing the Ukrainians. And if they are included in the packages that are coming forward today or in the coming weeks, we have absolute confidence that the Ukrainians will use them responsibly as they fight to take back their sovereign territory in the east and the north as well.
Wow. How's that for a song and dance for you? We're so convinced they're going to be so responsible. It's just like they've been really responsible with all U.S. taxpayer dollars. Wake up. Wake up. We know what this is. This is industry. This is business. I mean, look, I don't even want to get into I would just say this, like, look, it shouldn't come to this, right? Like, it should never, ever come to this. We ought to have better diplomatic channels. We ought to do a better job conveying a message so that Putin doesn't think that we're trying to take over Russia. I mean, if Putin were right there in Mexico, or China were right there in Mexico, I think we'd be kind of freaked out, right? Why don't we have a more diplomatic way of approaching all this? Why does it have to result in people dying and everybody making so much money? I mean, think about it. Everybody's making money on this. It's an industry. And I'm telling you, for the sake of the world, that industry needs to change dramatically. By the way, if we're not smart, we're going to get caught, totally left behind, because the industry is already changing. China's way ahead of us. They don't necessarily have to spend $135 billion to protect a place like Ukraine, because you see, they are embedded into our country with technology and social media that helps to tear us all apart. There was a report from Microsoft today that the folks over at the Heritage Foundation highlighted, showing this, saying that there are all kinds of super spies effectively and AI mechanisms that China's using to pit us all against one another. In other words, they're moving forward into modern warfare while we're still like, okay, well, let's make money off of this Ukraine situation. We found a group of people that are willing to fight, and we're giving them, I mean, it's unbelievable. And do not forget for 1 second, it's costing us all money. The Democrats do need a reality check, a big one.